What's up, guys? Welcome to the line change. Now, for those of you that saw my Abbotsford Canucks video, you saw how giddy, how happy, how enthusiastic I was about that. Well, we're going to go on the opposite end of the spectrum for this video because, and actually, do you guys remember? I think it was the game 2 of the Calder Cup final video that I posted. I mentioned that, baby meme. That's me again in regards to this video's topic. So yeah, sorry, it's a little of that. But this video in particular, we're going to be talking about Marco Rossi and the fact that the Minnesota Wild, or rather that the Vancouver Canucks, gave the Minnesota Wild a trade offer for Marco Rossi. They sent along an offer to try and get Marco Rossi, and the Minnesota Wild declined the trade package that the Canucks offered. And according to Patrick Johnson of the Province and Post Media, he mentioned that the Wild weren't impressed with the offer that the Canucks offered them. So again, so we're gonna go over an article that discusses what exactly that trade package was. It of course involved the Canucks' first round pick, and so yeah, we're gonna dive into that article. I'm gonna read the article, and then I'm gonna give my input on it. My thoughts, my opinion, and if this is, and I don't think this is the end of the Canucks attempting to get Rossi. Perhaps they might take another swing, and I'm going to give you guys an example of what I think the Canucks should offer and might actually entice the Minnesota Wild into actually approving and accepting the trade. Before I do that, as I always do, I want to thank my sponsor, Gassy Jack Art, maker of that incredible artwork you see there behind me. You guys can check out Gassy Jack Art at gassyjackart.com. You can also check him out on Instagram at Gassy Jack Art. I believe he still has his end of season sale going on where you can buy 4 prints, and 2 of those prints will be for free. So you're technically only paying for 2. So go ahead, check him out, gassyjackart.com. So let's go ahead and dive into this article. I will, of course, leave a link to the article in the description down below. But this article from our friends at Canucks Army, written by Scott Maxwell, says, as the Vancouver Canucks continue their search for another top 6 center, the Minnesota Wild center Marco Rossi appears to be high on that list. As first reported by Michael Russo of The Athletic, and later confirmed by Post Media's Patrick Johnson, the Canucks offered a trade for Rossi, with the offer involving their 15th overall first-round pick, and a player. The Wild reportedly declined that offer. At this point in time, what player was offered in the deal and whether it was a roster player or a prospect is unknown. Based on Russo's reporting, it appears that the Wild are hoping to get an NHL caliber roster player as part of the return. Rossi has been made available due to his dissatisfaction with his role with the Wild, having been deployed as a fourth-line center at various points of the season, as well as the playoffs. The Wild clearly have some doubts in his play, especially as a primary play driver, with Rossi being a restricted free agent. There's some hesitation to give him a pricey contract. Rossi is coming off the best season of his career up to this point with 24 goals and 36 assists for 60 points in 82 games. The Canucks have needed a top 6 center ever since the locker room conflict between Elias Pettersson and JT Miller forced Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin's hand and made them trade Miller to the New York Rangers earlier in the 2024-25 season. While they did get a center in Philip Hedl in return, Ideally, he would be the team's third line center. The Canucks will hope that they can swing a deal for Rossi, as the market for centers is not that big this summer. As of right now, Charlie Coyle, Pavel Zacha, Morgan Geekie, and David Kampf were the only centers not named Elias Pettersson listed as options on Daily Faceoff's most recent trade targets board. While the only top 6 center options in free agency are Sam Bennett, who's likely going back to Florida or re-signing in Florida, John Tavares, who could also be re-signing in Toronto, Jonathan Toews, Michael Granlund, Claude Giroux, and Pius Suter, who is likely going to go to free agency. So that's the article. Once again, I'll leave a link to it in the description down below. Obviously, if you are a follower of my channel, I want Rossi. Now, this is the big fish that I want the Canucks to go out and get. I think Rossi would be great for this team. He's a 60-point guy. Have him play behind Petey. I think it would be great. And I just really like Rossi. I like his, the type of player that he is. And the fact that he's 23 years old, too. And he's putting up 60 points. He's just hitting the prime of his career. And I think it would be a steal if the Canucks were able to get Marco Rossi and, help develop him even more. But in regards to the actual trade package itself, obviously you include the 15th overall pick. And, as the article mentioned, it's not sure what the player involved in the package was. They don't know if it was a prospect. They don't know if it was a roster player. Sounds like it was not a roster player. Sounds like it was potentially a prospect. And Minnesota kind of scoffed at it because they want a roster player, not a prospect. They're not looking for futures when it comes to a Marco Rossi trade, which is understandable. But, one name did pop into my head that they may have tried to entice the Wild with, and that was Philip Hedl. Perhaps he was maybe the player, and maybe they looked at Hedl and were like, he's injury prone. We're unsure about him because of his concussion history. He's not exactly reliable because of those injuries, and maybe they were hesitant and said no if it was Hedl. But I would have offered Hedl for Rossi as well as the first round pick. And then actually, just before I started recording this video, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, if they want a roster player, why not trade Pius Suter's rights to the Minnesota Wild with the 15th overall pick for Marco Rossi and or for Marco Rossi's rights, and the Wild can re-sign Suter. They probably would be able to offer him what Suter wants, which the Canucks are not willing to pay. I believe Suter wants 4.5 million a season for 4 years. I'm sure the Wild can actually, let me look that up. I actually don't know how much cap space the Minnesota Wild have currently. So, the whole thing with Rossi is he wants 7 times 7, and the Minnesota Wild are not willing to give him that. Okay, so the Minnesota Wild have 15, almost 16 million in cap space. So let's look at that. Yeah, so they have just under 16 million in cap space. Do they have any UFAs that they need to re-sign? They have 3. Well, 2, actually. They have Gustav Nyquist and Brazo. So that's not bad, only having two UFAs. So I would say, yeah, they could easily give Suter the money that he wants. They could sign him to a 4.5, maybe even go as high as 5. They could offer him $5 million, for 4 years, and I'm sure Suter would sign it like that, and they'd get their second line, their Rossi replacement. I know Suter's older, and you can't really compare Suter to Marco Rossi, even though Suter is very good. But hey, if I were the Canucks, I'd consider that. Trade Suter's rights, and maybe see if you can talk to Minnesota about extending him. And then I believe Minnesota is wanting to flip first round pick. Let them flip the first round pick, and then the Canucks get Rossi in return. You got your 2C. Hedl can move down to either the third line center position, or he can move to the wing, something we've talked about recently on this channel. I put out a video on that. You guys can actually check that out right here. But yeah, that is my trade proposal. That's one that I'm just kind of spitballing. Trade Suter and the first overall pick, or not first overall, 15th overall pick for Marco Rossi. So Suter, and I mean, as much as I want to keep Suter, it's plainly obvious he's not re-signing. So don't do what you did at the deadline and stand pat and not do anything. Trade Suter's rights to Minnesota for Marco Rossi. You heard it here first. Book it. Do it. Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you guys agree with that? Do you guys disagree with that? Do you guys think the Canucks should do that? I mean, it's worth a shot. I mean, it probably wouldn't hurt to offer that and see what Bill Guerin and the Wild say. I mean, they're asking for a rostered player, an NHL rostered player. That's Pius Suter. I keep saying it's obvious. Suter is not re-signing. So, and his value is probably pretty high after the way his season was, like the way he produced last season, especially towards the tail end of the season, where he ended up essentially being their first line center while Petey was out. Do it. Pull the trigger. Bring Marco Rossi to Vancouver. I'm sure Bill Guerin and the Minnesota Wild would say yes to that. I mean, who wouldn't say yes to that? You get a guy like Pius Suter, who's a Swiss Army knife, pun intended. You get the 15th overall pick, which you're likely going to flip to get, other assets. And you're giving up a guy like Marco Rossi, who clearly you have no interest in keeping or extending. Give him up. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. Do you guys like my kind of spitball, hot take, whatever you guys want to call it? Trade package, trade offer? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you want to stay up to date on all Canucks content, whether that's Abbotsford Canucks or your Vancouver Canucks, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. You can find us on social media. Find us on Facebook, just search The Line Change. Find our Facebook page. Find us on Instagram, @The Line Change. Find us on X, @LineChangeVan. Find us on TikTok, @the.line.change.po. Feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. And if you prefer an audio version of this podcast, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, once again, feel free to give us a follow, as well as rate and review us. It's greatly appreciated. But that's going to do it for this video. As always, let's go Canucks. I'm really excited for, the official start of the 2025 offseason. I'll be, trying to think of the word. I'll be glued to my phone, checking the news, checking trade stuff. If I have to, I'll tweet something, even if I'm at work. Maybe I'll do a quick little video or something. Who knows? We'll see. No promises on that. But I'll be glued to my phone, checking all the news, waiting to see if and when the Canucks actually do something to try and fix their top six. Once again, let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of my little spitball trade proposal to Minnesota. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.